To the beloved of YASHAYA the Christ, the true Son of AHAYAH, I want to refer us to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. But I want to emphasize on verse 8 and 10. That's only way I'm going to speak about. I've spoken about this before on the video called Parameters of Love. I would make reference to it in my description box so you can listen to it. But I want to talk about this because it's been impressed in my heart to emphasize on this. Even though I'm sure I've already emphasized on it, but this just is hard. Verse 8 says, "Love never fails, but whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away." Verse 9 says, "For we know in part, and we prophesy in part." Verse 10 says, "But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away." I'm going to stop there for a while. If we look above this verse 8, it talks about what love is. Love suffers long, is kind, does not envy, doesn't parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. That's what the parameters of love that Paul wrote down for us. And in the previous video, I spoke about, with the grace of AHAYAH, that AHAYAH himself is love. Without AHAYAH, you cannot have love. AHAYAH himself is love. But it says, when there are prophecies, love will fail. Whether there are tongues, love will cease. And when there is knowledge, it will vanish away. Why does prophecies go beyond love? The Lord knows you love. He knows you're humble and stuff like that, but when He gives you an instruction, you are meant to follow. So it supersedes the love of patience. Let me give you an instance. When AHAYAH gave Samuel an instruction to tell Saul in the book of 1 Samuel, let's look at it fast. 1 Samuel chapter 15. AHAYAH gave Saul an instruction to get rid of the Amalekites. But Saul did what he wanted to do. And if you look at verse 22 of that chapter 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 22, it says, "So Samuel said, as the Lord has great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord, behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams." See, the Lord delights, yes, in offerings and sacrifices. However, He delights even more in us being obedient to Him. When an instruction of AHAYAH comes and says, "Go and do this," I know obviously He says in His word, "Thou shalt not kill." But when He has given you an instruction, okay, I know I said to you, love your neighbor as yourself, but this person, get rid of that person. His instruction supersedes the love of you saying, "Oh, God said thou shalt not kill." The same God who can give you a pen to write and can be the same God to give you an eraser to erase what He told you to write. We have to delight delights to do his will. As he said, to obey is better than sacrifice. 1 Corinthians 13 says, verse 8 says, when there are prophecies, love will cease. The Lord did not say he loves everybody. But why do you think his judgment is there? Do you think those are doing evil, you think he doesn't love them? But it's their deeds that will lead them to their final judgment. God doesn't say he doesn't love the world. He loves everyone. But when he gives you an instruction, it supersedes even the love he has for mankind. Look at Yahshael. He died on the cross for all of us. Do you know how many times he pleaded with the Father he said to him, if you look at the book of Matthew chapter 26, verse 39, Mark 14, 36, Luke 22, 42, they all say the same thing. Yahshael said, Father, let me read Matthew chapter 26, verse 39. I'm going to read that only because it's the same. It says the same thing other of the chapters I've mentioned. Matthew chapter 26, verse 39 says, he went a little farther and fell on his face and prayed, saying, Oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. Yahshael knew the suffering he was going to suffer. Yes, he followed the instruction of the Father that yes, he will do it, he will go send me, and he came. And now he came here to the world and he saw the suffering. The burden was too heavy for him to carry. The cup was very bitter. He saw that he would go through. Flesh came. He said, he pleaded with the Father. He said, all things are possible. It is true, with AHAYAH all things are possible. But he remembered, obedience is better than sacrifice. He obeyed the Father. Said, nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. When there are prophecies, love will cease. Whether there are tongues, love will vanish away. When there is knowledge, it will vanish. Brethren in the Lord, as much as you love, you're being obedient, you're suffering long, you're being kind, you're not envious of anyone, you don't parade yourself, you're humble, you're not puffed up. You do not behave rudely. You do not seek your own. You obey your parents. You're not easily provoked. You don't think of evil. When the Lord comes and gives you an instruction, go get rid of this person from your life. Even though you know that, you love this person, you have to obey the voice of AHAYAH. Let's look at the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 12. Remember the story of Abraham? AHAYAH told Abraham in chapter 12, let me read from verse 1 to 5. It says, now the Lord had said to Abraham, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse I'll curse him who curses you. And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. If you can continue to read further, AHAYAH blessed him because he obeyed. However, if you notice the age of Abraham, he was 75 years old when AHAYAH told him to leave his family get out of his country. How many of you, at that age, would listen? At that age, 75, you are leaving your country. Even your neighbors and your family member will tell you, when you were younger, you had your opportunity, you had strength, you didn't leave. Is this at your old age that you want to leave? You see the reason why AHAYAH called Abraham his friend? He was obedient even at his old age. AHAYAH didn't tell him when he was in his 30s or in his 20s or in his 30s or in his 40s or in his 50s. It was when he was 75 years old. How many of you or myself would AHAYAH say, okay, leave this land at this particular age and you'll be obedient? Would you not say you're a pensioner, Baba? How am I going to survive? Whether there are prophecies, love will cease. Abraham loved his family. But this love seems to be a love of God, not a love of man. It's a love of being obedient to God. So this love is beyond what we are seeing, beyond all these parameters that Paul has written for us here. This is the love of God himself. It's beyond the love of man. This AHAYAH prophet, he spoke to him and he obeyed. AHAYAH gave him an instruction and he followed. Look at what AHAYAH told Abraham again in Genesis 22. I'm going to read from verse 1 to 3. It says, now it came to pass after these things that AHAYAH, that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, yeah, I am. Then he said, take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and they split the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. You see when the word of AHAYAH says, verse 2 says, take now your son, your only son whom you love. AHAYAH knows that he is the only son, and obviously he loves him. But he gave him an instruction. Obedience is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. In this day and age, AHAYAH is going to be giving us instructions. As much as you love your environment, love your family, love your work, love your church, love your surroundings, we have to be obedient to him. Father is going to start speaking to us all and giving us instructions, and we must heed. In this scenario, love is going to fail because there will be prophecies coming up. Tongues will be coming up. Knowledge will come up. Knowledge is already going to and through the earth already. And in this case, love is going to cease. I don't know why I'm given this nudge to talk about this. I don't know. But obedience to God, obedience to AHAYAH, it's very important nowadays. Let's hear a still voice talking to us. Listen. Be careful to listen to him. He's going to start instructing us. I spoke about a video recently that I spoke about, just trying to remember. I spoke about Urgent Reminder, Part 2. Where I said some are trusting in their chariots and in their horses. I said, let's put our trust in AHAYAH. This is the only way. He's going to start instructing us and tell us what we should do. Because in this day and age, flesh and blood can't help us. Only the Spirit of truth. Let's take heed. and listen carefully to his instructions, regardless of how old you are. Abraham 75, and he was given the instructions to leave. AHAYAH can tell you to, you know what, as old as you are, you can have a house already, you've bought already. You've had all these vineyards, you have all these things you've already done. AHAYAH tells you, you know what, I want you to move. See, whenever AHAYAH gives us instructions, it's for our own good. He has nothing to lose or to gain. It's we that have something to lose or gain in obedience or disobedience. It's to save our lives. AHAYAH wanted Abraham to save his life. He wanted his life to be saved. That's why he told him to move and to give him a land flowing with milk and honey. And all AHAYAH's intention is for us is good, not for evil, to bring us to an expected end, as Jeremiah chapter 29 has spoken about. His thought for us is good and not of evil. So whatever age you are, even if you're young, you're a teenager or whatever it is, and AHAYAH gives an instruction, you have to obey. Look at Samuel. At what age did he start prophesying? You know, age to God is nothing. He's the one that called us. He's the one that chose us. So your age has nothing to do with AHAYAH. He can make a small baby that just gave birth to start prophesying. The power of God is unlimited. Brethren, the Lord, this is beyond love. This is beyond the parameters of love. When there are prophecies, love will cease. Love will fail. When there are tongues, it will cease, and when there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we truly know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, what is that is perfect? Is AHAYAH. AHAYAH is that which is perfect, and when it comes, that which is in part will be done away. AHAYAH is that is perfect. Let's take it and listen to his still small voice talking to us. Father, we surrender to you. Help us to be obedient to you. In Yahshael's holy name, amen.